Okay, so before we start this video off, I wanted to give a quick update on my opinion of Gara, specifically her damage output. Now, there's two ways that I could go about admitting this. I could say, after further review of the Gara Warframe and her damage output, I have determined that a reevaluation is in order. Or, I could be simple and blunt and just say, So, here's the deal, right? I wrote and recorded the original script for the first Gara video a little too early, I feel. The community hadn't sniffed out all the tricks behind her at that point in time. Just as an example, the wiki at the time did not say anything about pop rocks being refreshed if you cast your ring. I found that little trick out myself. But I sure as hell did not know everything, because to me it didn't feel like her abilities had much, if any, scaling. But I probably should've, tried her abilities with and without a stat stick. Can someone please remind me to do that in the future so I don't look like a complete fucking joke? I mean, more than I already am. First off, her 1 is actually really strong with the stat stick. Personally, I use the Broken War, and with my setup, her 1 can nuke Trash Lancers up to level 80. That honestly is not bad at all. Now, it does still struggle versus heavy units, but given that the majority of enemy hordes is comprised of trash, it's not that bad, especially if you use the sword variant. And yes guys, I do know that you can hold the button for a sword sweep. I knew way before I began scripting the last video, and I even showed it off in the original video. I just didn't use it that much because, well, I kinda had a shitty joke to make about the projectile version. Her ring explosion also scales off of melee mods, by the by. Although, unlike a lot of other offensive juggernauts in the game, Gara does not really have anything that manages her energy when she's out there destroying hordes of mobs. But to be honest, she doesn't need any kind of energy management for her offensive powers because she's already fantastic at defense as is. But that's not the only reason that I say that, because despite all I've said, Gara is still the closest thing that we have to a grim fucking Reaper in the game. Do you remember in the last video when I snuck in a shitty piece of footage of her Shatter Shield? So, Splinter Storm has damage scaling on it. If we walk into a mob over here, we're dealing about 338 points of damage. So let's shatter our ring, say, 4 times. We are now dealing 1,607 points of damage. That is actually pretty damn cool. Yeah, well, after messing around with it some more, I have concluded that yes, this thing has no damage cap on it. If you have the time and the energy, you can turn Gara into a walking spawn of death. Let me show you something real quick. That was a level 115 heavy gunner. It just died from Gara touching it. That is how strong the pop rock shields can become. Sure, it took like 50 years to stack that much damage, but still, just look. In fact, Gara's touch can become so powerful that it scares me. Now, of course, you might be thinking, Triburos, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean, scary? Well, it's simple, really. I mean, think about it. Gara is clearly intended to be a jack of all trades that can be obtained relatively easily by newer players. She can deal good damage with her 1 and her 4. She can protect herself with pop rocks. She can protect allies and objectives with pop rocks. She can crowd control in multiple different ways, some better than others. But it's worth noting and remembering she isn't the best in any of those roles, except for her ring, which currently gives Snow Globe a run for its money. This is all to be expected from a jack of all trades, and in Gara's case, she seems to be the defensive equivalent to Excalibur. Excalibur is a Jote with a higher focus on offense, while Gara is a Jote with a higher focus on defense. But then, you learn about her ability to kill almost anything with the 1 touch. And doesn't that seem a little off? Why does a frame like Gara possess a touch of death? Let me remind you, Even the strongest of offensive frames have a cap to their destruction. Mesa and Excalibur are limited by mods and multiplier limitations. Chroma's Vex armor and Rhino's Roar, they can only go so high. Even Limbo's Rift Surge augment, which grants him ridiculous amounts of damage, is limited by the number of enemies he can get into the rift. The only frame that I can think of that comes even close is Equinox and her MAME ability. But even then, it's a one-time burst of damage that has to be charged up first. Gara also has to charge hers up, but once it's charged, it can last more or less forever. Gara, a frame that is relatively easy to acquire, with a big focus on defense, can scale into damage ranges that seem to go on forever with no end. And yet she's not even meant to be an offensive powerhouse. This clearly was not a choice made by a developer. It's almost like when she was created, she took on a mind of her own. Like she became sentient within a sea of code and developed a sinister mind. My theory is simple. Gara is an entity. She snuck a failsafe into her own code when she was being created, and Digital Extremes simply failed to notice. She didn't want to be limited to her role as a jolt. She probably doesn't even want to be in the game at all. In fact, I believe that Gara's touch of death could become so strong that it could break through invincibility phases on bosses. It could become so strong that it could destroy a planet like Vahek's Pornhub history destroys my eyes. And perhaps if someone out there dedicated their life and sacrificed their very soul to this entity, the touch of death could be built up to such an extent that she could break through the game itself. We clearly need to do something about this. I know folk don't like nerfs, but there's a difference between nerfing a video game character and stopping Gara's path on destroying all of mankind. We have to report this! We have